This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Fann, the preacher man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the preacher man.
Well, welcome again to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man. And thank you, Hal Lamar, for bringing us on tonight. And thank you, Hal, for calling in and telling us what you thought about last week's program. Thank you so much, Hal, and looking for you to come on back on in and do some more interesting Black History facts for us right here on Straight Talk. Listen, Shannon and I last week we had a real lively discussion about the former president. And I'm going to say former president because that's who he is, a former president, Donald Trump, in terms of Shannon's views and my views in terms of what was happening, whether or not he would be indicted or not be indicted, should he be indicted, should he not be indicted. Some of you, and we took an opinion poll, many of you called in and said, or text and said, and made comments and said he should be indicted. There were others that had the opinion of Shannon, but they're a little less on the side of Shannon than on my side. Thank you so very much. But today he was indicted. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in a little bit. But right now, Shannon, you got anything you want to say before we go on the other side and see Miss C?
No, I want to hear Miss C, and then I want to jump into this indictment and this conversation and where it is.
All right, thank you so very much. Hey, listen, we'll be right back on the other side with after Miss C to talk more about this indictment of a former president, the first ever. It's historical. We'll be back. Don't you go nowhere. You stay tuned to Straight Talk with yours to the Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Shannon E. Jones. Well, welcome again to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the preacher man. And thank you, Hal Lamar, for bringing us on tonight. And thank you, Hal, for calling in and telling us what you thought about last week's program. Thank you so much, Hal, and looking for you to come on back on in and do some more interesting Black History facts for us right here on Straight Talk. Listen, Shannon and I last week we had a real lively discussion about the former president. And I'm going to say former president because that's who he is, a former president, Donald Trump, in terms of Shannon's views and my views in terms of what was happening, whether or not he would be indicted or not be indicted, should he be indicted, should he not be indicted. Some of you, and we took an opinion poll, many of you called in and said, or text and said, and made comments and said he should be indicted. There were others that had the opinion of Shannon, but they're a little less on the side of Shannon than on my side. Thank you so very much. But today he was indicted. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in a little bit. But right now, Shannon, you got anything you want to say before we go on the other side and see Miss C?
No, I want to hear Miss C, and then I want to jump into this indictment and this conversation and where it is.
All right, thank you so very much. Hey, listen, we'll be right back on the other side with after Miss C to talk more about this indictment of a former president, the first ever. It's historical. We'll be back. Don't you go nowhere. You stay tuned to Straight Talk with yours to the Greg Fann, the preacher man, and Shannon E. Jones.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast or more. Hello, Pastor Greg. Hello, Pastor Shannon. Hope you all are well. Hope all of our viewers out there are well. Listen, I've got some tidbits of news I'd like for you to know about. Listen, Family Life Missionary Baptist Church at 107 Highland Hills Road in Fayetteville invites you to prayer and Bible study Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Sunday morning worship begins at 10:45 a.m. Call 678-304-7650 to get more details. Bishop A.T. Lands and Bishop Rosemary Lands are co-pastors. St. John AME at 305 West Campbellton Street in Fairburn invites you to their church's rededication service on April 30th at 2 p.m. Bishop Reginald T. Jackson will be special guest. Reverend Charles Ramsey Jr. is senior pastor. You can go online for more information at www.stjohnfairburn.com. I can read my own handwriting. Walking on Water Ministry wants you to join them for their More Than Conquerors tent revival going on April 25th through April 30th at 7 p.m. nightly. Walking on Water Ministry is located at 4600 Elgin Street in the city of South Fulton, Georgia, 30213. Bishop Jerome Lawrence is pastor. I'd like to announce your event too. Please send it to me in our email at straighttalknews1362 at gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362 at gmail.com. And I have 4 things I'd like for you to do before you go. I'd like for you to subscribe to us. I'd like for you to like us, and you'll see those 2 little buttons right there on the screen. And then I'd like for you to leave comments and let us know how we're doing. And number 4, let everybody know. Share us. Share Straight Talk News with all your friends and relatives. You'll be glad you did. And until next time, may the Lord God bless you real good.
Well, we're back now on the other side with Shanan and myself, and we're going to have some lively discussion tonight. And we said debate, but lively discussion tonight. As you have seen and heard, the former president, Donald Trump, has been indicted by DA Alvin Bragg in New York. And nobody knows what he's been indicted, the charges that he's been indicted on. We know there's been much discussion about, him being indicted, not being indicted. So more is going to come out about it because he is a process that he has to go through now. And that process is he has to turn himself in. He has to be mugshotted. He has to be fingerprinted. And then more likely they're going to release him on his own recognizance. They don't see him as a flight risk, right? And we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis and what Ron DeSantis has said too about the president's indictment. But we'll talk about a little bit more about that, Shannon. But what are you hearing and what are you seeing? What are you feeling now, Shannon, after last week's discussion?
What am I hearing or feeling after last week's discussion?
Yeah.
That the former president of the United States, has been indicted by the district attorney of Manhattan.
So I mean, with that, and I've been listening to a lot of commentators, what the commentators are saying, and some are saying, and this is the truth of the process that it goes, is that though he's indicted, doesn't mean that he's going to go to jail. It doesn't, because he's got to go like any other citizen before a court of his peers, right? So actually the jury will decide whether or not he is going to be guilty of the charges that he is going to be leveled against him. So he'll have his same day in court like everybody else. But I think the significant thing is that he has been indicted on those charges. Now we got other things that are pending, like here in Georgia in Fulton County with DA Fann Willis, right? About the election. In terms of whether or not did he interfere with the election that was being held here in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, right? And then we have the other thing about the Mar-a-Lago thing, and then also the January 6th committee. So those are real other charges that he's faced. But one thing that was said that I thought was very interesting by one commentator, he's talking about Trump as being corrupt in his business dealing, being corrupt and with apprentice, just having a corrupt, working with his dad, just being a corrupt person in terms of his business dealings, and then became a president and kept that same practice of being just corrupt and doing corrupt things. And so now we see finally that over a long period of time now he's facing this indictment, and he may go to jail, may not go to jail. More likely, most commentators say he's not going to go to jail. He may be, probation or something to that effect. But he's supposed to turn himself in the next couple of days. So we'll see as it continues to play out.
Well, one thing I just want to just add, he didn't, he didn't become president. And I know you didn't mean that. I know, but he was elected president.
Right.
And so that means that there is a whole electorate the folks that are viewing this another on tonight. Um, I'm not going to shrink from my position from last week or the position that I've had. I'm going to hold. In fact, I'm going to dig in even further. I'm going to let you know that there perhaps will be years before. It could be possibly years before tonight's indictment and the actual trial. I do not think that the former president will do any time. I know that if you pull tape on this show, that you and I have had a great deal of agreement on the shenanigans of Donald Trump and the shenanigans of January the 6th and the shenanigans and the disrespect that he paid to the country by trying to incite riot, to overthrow the verification of an election, to stop the advancement of government, of the U.S. government, refusing to peacefully transition power, choosing not to attend the inauguration, holding for himself a kind of send-off that made it for that electorate that we were discussing, that I discussed at the beginning of my comments, making them to think that perhaps he was still the legitimate president of the United States. Far too many of them in that elect, not everybody in that elect, but a lot of them are part of that portion of the electorate that supported him. A great portion of them felt that he was really still the legitimate president. So, in that sense, you had kind of a neo-confederacy, a new kind of confederacy that was not geographical, but more politically ideological. I'm going to say this tonight. On March the 30th, 2023, that even though this president, this former president, broke the law, and yes, I agree that as a private citizen, he's not above the law. As president of the United States, he's not above the law. That the law and the Constitution has to be the highest form of this republic. I agree with that. But I also say to you tonight that, as I said last week, we will one day elect a president with the concerns that we have, possibly like an Obama, possibly like a Joe Biden, possibly like a Bill Clinton, possibly like a Jimmy Carter, possibly like a Kennedy or an LBJ. And there's going to be one president, and there are thousands of local district attorneys. And I think we are entering tonight in a very slippery slope. And I think that portion of the electorate that is backing him is going to be extremely unforgiving in that. So I'm not arguing, breaking the law. Not. I'm saying that what we are entering in tonight, and you said this is the first time this has happened in the history of it won't be the last. And it's going to open Pandora's box for various other things. And it's going to move, I believe, the politics of our nation in an even more divisive and dangerous, deadly, greasy slope.
Well, I'm going to say this, Shannon, and I appreciate what you just said. I do appreciate what you just said, and that has been said because even with this discussion, it's been said, Shannon. Because one thing that we know, you and I know, is that if President Obama would have done what half of the stuff or portion of the stuff that Trump is allegedly have done, then there would be a deal. He would have been in jail. Been in jail, right? We know this. We understand this. So what we have here, Shannon, is we have this double standard. if and I think what people are fighting for is, in this whole thing, and the guy said it best, is that it's this. Let me talk about Ron DeSantis' statement and what he said, and how he was saying that this black attorney general of DA was influenced by some Jewish person to make the decision that he made, right? That to indict, it was by some kind of outside influence. We know that politics is in itself dirty. We know what happened with Nixon and Watergate. You probably were a kid then, real kid, and how that played out, and then how Gerald Ford ended up eventually pardoning Nixon for a crime that Nixon had done. Right? We know that his attorney general went to jail because of an indictment because of what that crime. So this is just the first for a president, but attorney generals have gone to jail. People in high places have gone to jail. I mean, if a person violates the law, and I think this is what is the stigma here, is that no one, and this is what I said last week, and I'm sticking to my point, no one is above the law. No one. I don't care who it is. And if people continue to do those kinds of things, we have to, if we want a democracy, we want to be what we say we are, a democracy, and that's what we really hold our hats on. We are a democratic society. We're a free society. We are a society made up of laws, and we are law-abiding citizens, and we need to be and hold people to the letters of the law. But if we're going to hold people to the letter of the law, we have to continue to hold those people who are in high places to the letter of the law also too. So I mean, if this is the penalty to change the way our society is, and those people who do wrong, if they do wrong, then they have to deal with what they've done wrong, and they too have an opportunity to go before a jury of their peers, like the former president will in this case. And if other cases come up, I'm sure it will be the same thing. So that's why we have a justice system. And it has to be fair for everybody. It has to be treated the same way for everybody. If you break the law, you break the law. If you break the law, you break the law. Now, I know you talked about other things in terms of his Secret Service clearance and his classification information that he may have that he could share and what have you. Will maybe ask for. I don't think that the judge is going to allow them to ask for certain kind of questions. That's just my opinion, the way I see it. But one of the things that we both can agree upon is, I believe tonight, is that we agree upon is that no one really is above the law, and that people should be treated in a fair and just manner, no matter what position that they're in. You know.
No, I certainly agree that, as we stated earlier, that no one is above the law, president, a sitting president, or a former president. That said, last week we were talking about, and you brought up about the security clearance, and I'm not even sure that a judge would have the clearances to be able to deal with what the president has. I mean, you had the son-in-law of Trump that was working as a special advisor to the president, that had to leave the room several times because he could not, and his father-in-law could not get him the security. He couldn't even give him the security clearance that he needed to be able to be able to stay. Jared Kushner to be able to stay in the room on certain things, and so here he is, a federal advisor, a special advisor, working on the White House staff for his father-in-law. At a very high level, at a level so high that he intimidated a couple of chiefs of staff for the president. And one of them was a United States 4-star general. And yet he still did not have the certain clearances to be able to stick around. So I bring up the clearances issue, and I'm not sure that DA Bragg is going to have that as well to be able to really get to the truth of this. I think that ultimately he broke the law in allegedly broke the law in Georgia, allegedly broke the law in, I say allegedly because you're innocent until proven guilty. So,
Right.
I mean, I have my druthers on that. I think that it was a clear case, but we're going to stick with, we're going to stick with the fact that he has to go before a jury of his peers and be convicted. So he allegedly broke the law in Fulton County, allegedly broke the law in Manhattan in the Stormy Daniels case and some other things that have come up. But that's the former president. Let's talk about the sitting president and the Pandora box that I'm talking about. There's a gentleman by the name of Hunter Biden. He is the youngest son of the president, formerly addicted to crack cocaine, that had some very questionable business dealings. And in those business dealings, there was perhaps some concern or some things that indicated or pointed a finger at the then vice president of the United States, who was his father, perhaps has been implicated, as being one who would have helped his son in a business deal, and done some things that would have been questionable and or illegal. And so there are hearings going on that, and they're preparing for a major hit on that. The slippery slope that I'm talking about is the tit for tat kind of way that our politics are in now. There's an African proverb that says, when the elephants, no political party pun here, but when the elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. And when our federal elected officials and the bureaucracies are being weaponized to fight one another, instead of doing the people's business, then the people become kind of the grass. And here's the thing: Putin and Ping, president of the sitting president, President Xi, sitting president of China, and Netanyahu and others are watching. And that's what I'm saying. Now, there are going to be some that argue that, well, it don't matter because he broke the law. And what I'm saying is that what's good for the goose, in 2 years when we sitting here on this air and they getting ready to put a Biden or somebody, indicting him, getting ready to put him in jail, don't call in saying how terrible this is, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Well,
and that's a dangerous place to be when you got thousands of weaponized district attorneys and one sitting president of the United States. That's the commander in chief of the United States government, and he's there or she's there to govern this nation.
But I hear what you're saying. If Mr. Biden has done something wrong, if then if he broke or violated the law, then so be it. We can't. What we can't do is this is how I feel about it. We
And
can't
Bishop,
have.
let me just one thing I left out, Bishop.
Go on.
I'll say that, remember, the argument is that there were some things that they're saying that the Biden team was able to have the media embargo the electorate, and perhaps would have caused Biden to lose, but certain things weren't reported or was withheld or were killed so that it did not come up before the November election. And that's another argument of something that the other side is bringing out. So that's a part of that slippery slope that I'm talking about.
Well,
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me just say what I was about to say, and I appreciate what you're saying. I do appreciate what you're saying, and I will say this: everyone has everyone got some skeletons in our closet. That's just be real. That's
I don't have
that's the
any.
truth.
I don't.
I
I
know,
ain't
I
got
know,
no.
I
You
know.
got skeletons? I don't got no skeletons.
Okay, all right then. Well, you Mr. Perfect then.
Stevie
Thank you.
Wonder sung "My Skeletons Away."
Yeah, okay, all right then. All right, Big Papa. All right, Big Papa. I mean, but let's just be clear: is that when you're in public office, you're under the scrutiny of the public. And when you do things, then, and I hear what you're saying, tit for tat, but it's been tit for tat all along, and it's gonna continue to be tit for tat. You slap my dog, I'm gonna hit your cat. You slap, Edward G. Right, say you kill my brother, so I'm gonna kill your brother. I mean, that's that mafia gangster style of stuff, and that's the way it is. I mean, that's reality is that if Mr. Biden is caught his hand in the cooking jar, or whoever hand is caught in the cooking jar, then they got to be dealt with that based on that. We can't pick and choose who's gonna be penalized for what they did because of a position that they held. You're in a position of trust. You're in a position of trust, and the people give you that position of trust. You ask them to elect you to the position of trust, to give you that job for a position of trust. That's just like any job you apply for. You're asking the people to trust you to do the job they hire you for, right? So you put in a position of trust, and people looking for they can trust you to do what you say and what they hired you to do. And if you can't do that, then whatever penalty is, you got to deal with it. As a former union leader, and probably still is a union leader, that's one thing that I had to deal with many times is with people who violated the policies. Good people had been there for years or done things and had never been in trouble. But when they violated the policy, there were penalties for that. There was a written warning, that was a suspension, that was a demotion, or a termination. And then based on that, then we were able to decide what that penalty would be. And then we fought to make sure that the penalty was as less as we could get if they did do it. But one thing that I always said to them, if you did it, then own up to what you did and then move on. Own up to what you've done and then move on. So there's no difference for me in terms of whether you're a president, whether you're a congressperson, whether you're a council person, a commissioner, a CEO, or CFO, or just John Q. Public. If you did it, admit it, and move on, and move on. And when we say tit for tat, I mean, really, that's the way it goes. That's life in itself. It's going to be tit for tat. We grew up shooting the dozen. The dozen joning, right? You join me, I join you. You join me, I join you. And then you win this battle, I win the next one. But it was tit for tat until we just got tired of doing tit for tat. But the reality of it is that's the way it is. So I know you say it's dangerous, a slippery slope, but the reality of it is, Shannon, this is what we're faced with today in America, in this country. And it was brought on by this former president who divided this country based upon greed, based upon divisiveness of skin color, and I say it, skin color. I mean, all of that. And Ron DeSantis is carrying out the same thing. He is alleging that he said, this is what DeSantis said. DeSantis said that if they do indict him or they say he's got to be extradited from Florida, he will not do it. He will not do it. How can a governor say that he sound like George Wallace when George Wallace said he was not going to do what the Supreme Court said he had to do down at that school with those black students? He said he will not do it. Are we going back to the 50s and the 60s? Are we going back? Because this is what this party has become, divisive in terms of race, against Jews, against blacks, against certain. I mean, come on now. What have we become? What have we become? And are we going to uphold this kind of behavior? Are we going to uphold it, or are we going to be a free society to do what we say we're going to do? And that's to live by the laws of this land, right?
Well, I hear you. I think that that is. I agree with you that it's always been tit for tat. I would argue that the tit for tat is becoming even more personal and more dangerous. I would argue, by your even estimation, that this is the first time that a former president has been indicted. So I'll say that the tit for tat is becoming perhaps more dangerous, and the politics of personality becoming more personal. Clinton was not indicted for Whitewater, wasn't indicted for perjuring himself, for lying with the Monica Lewinsky case. Nixon was not indicted. And yet tonight, Trump, and rightly so, I'm not saying, hear me clearly, as a citizen of the United States, rightly so, he broke the law. The grand jury heard it. The grand jury voted to indict. That's not my argument. My argument is that the tit for tat is becoming more personal and more dangerous. And this is a bad apple like a Trump will stop good people from even wanting to enter the process. Not because they would do something wrong, but because someone could say they did something wrong. And a DA can indict a ham sandwich. So they definitely can indict. Huh?
I know personally they can.
They can indict a ham sandwich. You know it personally.
Yeah, I know it personally.
So this would keep good people from wanting to step forward and serve their nation because of the toxicity of our politics, from a local politics, from little municipalities in Georgia and in Florida, to a Ron DeSantis saying what he's basically standing there saying segregation today, segregation tomorrow, and forever.
Forever.
A neo version of that, that the toxicity of politics. And what I'm saying is that tonight, this will, whether it's right or wrong, this will become kerosene for that toxicity. And it's going to burn in a way that we don't want it to burn in days to come.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, and I think many people that will be viewing and listening tonight will understand that too, Shannon, because we know one bad apple spoiled a whole bunch. We learned that coming up, right? So here we go. When we look at countries like Israel, who's dealing with the same thing with this indictment of their president now, right? And we look at other countries that have indicted presidents and how it has divided that country. But we have a person who was elected to a position that was, again, a position of trust, but utilized that position to divide this country and to make this country what he felt it should be great again, and many of them who his father felt that he was making it great again, and the promises and the things that he said that he was going to do, he didn't accomplish those things. The only thing that he really accomplished was to divide this country, and this country is divided not so much about party lines, but by racial lines, because there are some good Republicans. You know them, I know them. There's some who really want to do what's right. But they're outnumbered by those who really sticking behind what is wrong. And I'm going to use his name. Dewey McClain, he says this all the time: what's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. And this is wrong. And we can't stand behind wrong. We just can't. I mean, we have to deal with the fallout from what we do in correcting wrong, but we still have to deal with what's wrong. That's my position on this. And I think that's a position on many, many people. And I hear your position, and it's not an argument, that's just your position in terms of what you see coming down the pike, right? So we're good on that. But let's take a few minutes before we get off to talk a little bit about some of the things that's happening other than Mr. Trump, right? In his indictment. Let's talk about some of the good things that's happening around our nation, and some good things that's happening, that's helping people in terms of their better quality of life, a better quality of life. As ministers, we do ministry and trying to bring people out of darkness into the marvelous light, and giving them hope and assurances that there's going to be a better tomorrow. There are some things that are happening that are good and that are beneficial for people, good and beneficial for people. Well, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Well, the bill that was passed in terms of insulin, perhaps. Let's talk about that. That was a good thing to help people who are diabetics to be able to purchase, especially senior citizens who are on fixed income, to purchase insulin at a good price that they could afford, right? That's some good things. So there's some good things that are happening. And see, we focus on a lot of the negative things, but there are a lot of good things that are happening, and that people don't know about, because people don't stay in tune to some of this the good things. They just deal with the bad things. And I want to talk about, and when we talk about the police training thing, that's a good thing. Shanan, that's a good thing. People want to take a good thing and make it into a bad thing. But if we want to train our officers to be, and our firefighters and those people in public safety to be really servants of the people, and to serve people, and to serve and protect and to help people in the right way, right? So, I mean, to have a training facility, when you look at the Herbert T. Jenkins old training facility, and the thing that people had to go through in that thing to be trained to be an officer, and the fireplace where that school and they were being trained in. I mean, when you look at that, I mean, that in itself should say to you is, they need a better training facility. They need better accommodations for people to want to learn their job, to come out here and serve and protect our community. And I know you want to talk a little bit about that, because something you shared with me earlier about something you had shared with the mayor in terms of the public safety training facility.
Yeah, I shared it with the mayor of Atlanta and several other elected officials that I spoke to this week, and that was for those that are just hard. There's absolutely against the training facility, saying that we don't need to train officers. They don't need to be trained in urban warfare. Well, I would ask them to look at the tape of 4 officers going in to clear a building, the Nashville Metropolitan Police going in to clear that Presbyterian school, day school building, coming upon that shooter that was firing out of the window from magazines, several magazines, shooting down at the police officers as they were arriving on the scene, using a weapon of mass destruction, engaged in the act of mass destruction in a church school. And to see how they went in there to clear that building, not knowing how many folks came in, if there was a team of people that was in there, and they cleared that building. And that level of training is necessary for those that are arguing that they want to abolish the police. Put your child in a building and have some deranged individual go in and kill their friends, and know that your child is in there, and know that you worked to abolish a police force. SWAT team or no police officers coming. And send in mental health professionals, because clearly that person needs a mental health professional as they're holding an AK-47, as they're holding an assault rifle. They in a school shooting down 9-year-old children, killing the janitor, killing a teacher, killing the headmaster of the school. Certainly that person needed a psychologist. But what psychologists are going to go into a facility without police first being trained in the crime of our day, the crimes of our day? When people have AK-47s, people have assault rifles, they're engaged in urban warfare. And those who are sworn to protect us have to be trained from being officer friendlies and patrolling communities. They have to put down 6-shooter guns and pick up assault rifles themselves and learn how to engage in urban warfare, clear a building and take down that person, deranged or not, who's attacking the lives of children, of individuals in malls, in schools. We've had 13 mass shootings. That's one for every week of this year. We've had a mass shooting. And we're still arguing whether or not we need common sense gun legislation. We're arguing, should there be an assault rifle ban, or if there can't be, that there can be a magazine, assault rifle magazine ban. Come on. It's crazy.
It truly is. But listen, my brother, I want to thank you. So that's a good thing. See, we talk about bad things. We talk about Mr. Trump. Now we talk about good things. And for those of you who want to hear your opinion, what do you think about the training facility? We want to have dialogue with you about the things that are good, things that are challenging, things that are in the best interest of people. And we can have various opinions. Somebody's trying to call now. We're not live.
And Bishop, here's the deal. They were able to neutralize that. The call came in at 10:13. We have a shooter in our building. We think we have a shooter in our building. At 10:27, that person that was taking lives was dead. Not arrested, not being boarded in a room somewhere. We don't know if he's got some hostages in this, but neutralized, taken out. And it happened in about 14 minutes. That's training, and you don't get that by not having a training facility to train like that. And I would that they would have been able to go in and send some preachers in and talk her down and get her the help that she needed. Clearly, there were some issues there. This poor soul that was tormented in such a way and used of the enemy in such a way through her own pain, from whatever torment and things happened to her at that school, perhaps, when she was there years ago, or in that community. But it doesn't make it right to go in to take lives. Well, she wasn't in her right mind. Well, I wish we could have gotten to her. But unfortunately, all clergy I know are going to go in behind the police and not in front of them.
We're not trained to go in front. We're trained to come in behind. But anyway, I want to
Some ain't even trained to go.
Yeah, you're right. But I want to thank you so much. I really do. I want to thank those of our viewers that watch us each and every week and make comments. I want to thank you. Don't forget that you can go out to Straight Talk News 1362 at gmail.com. Send your comments in if you want Cynthia to announce something about something happening at your church, something that's happening in the community, some event. We'll do it right here on Straight Talk. Listen, we're going to ask Hal to take us out of here. Don't forget to do like Cynthia says, subscribe, like us, make comments, and share. Won't you do that? And help us to increase our viewership. Just share. We love for you to share our program right here on Straight Talk. Big Papa, I'm going to let you go ahead and take care of Samuel now and give him some milk, all right? I hear him crying in the background. Until next week, this ain't nothing but what? Straight
Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922@comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.